Mexico. Thank you all for tuning in. We're still having people that are joining in, but we would like to start on time. And I would like to herewith welcome our speaker for today, Amjath-Babu. Some of you may have met him, but I assume that most of you have not, because he's a recent colleague that joined us the other year in Socioeconomics Program in the CIMMYT Dhaka office, where he's working closely together with the SIP program in Bangladesh and South Asia. He's part of our modeling and targeting team and has a PhD and postdoc in agricultural economics from the Justus Liebig University of Giessen in Germany, and has a varied work experience, including with CCAFS, ICIMOD, and currently is with us in the CIMMYT in the South Asia office. He has also been actively looking at COVID-19 implications in Bangladesh, together with some of the other CG centers and national program there. And some of that has resulted in a paper that he has just published in Food Security, which has a special issue on COVID-19 for those that are interested to read up more. And he will give us some of the highlights and implications for us in terms of better understanding. So without further ado, I would like to hand the floor to Amjath, and it's late evening there. So Amjath, over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Olaf. Let me share my screen first. So can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen. And again, people, colleagues, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. And so we'll be, after the presentation from Amjath, we'll be going through the questions and have a questions and answers, and we'll close off in a little less than an hour from now. So go ahead, Amjath, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Olaf. So welcome all of you to this special seminar series on scenarios for the future, how to create value in the new normal. So my presentation is titled COVID-19 and Food System Disruption, Insights for Building Resilience. So as I'm working in South Asia, I'll be talking from the experience of South Asia, and the data I use is mainly from Bangladesh, but I will discuss the insight in a South Asian context as well as Sub-Saharan African context. So I'll try to project it so. So let me give us a brief background on why I'm giving this seminar. So first of all, we recently published a paper, which Olaf mentioned, is published in Food Security Journal. It's titled Key Indicators for Monitoring Food System Disruptions Caused by COVID-19 Pandemic, Insights from Bangladesh Towards Effective Response. So this was in a collaboration with World Fish as well as the Cornell University. Secondly, I coordinated a rapid assessment report with FAO on food and nutrition security, impacts of COVID on nutrition and food security in Bangladesh with FAO. So given these two outputs, we also discussed in details on how to monitor the COVID-19 impacts in the country. And we decided to build a data and policy dashboard to monitor detailed impact of COVID-19 in the food system. So I would like to give some details of these efforts. And thirdly, we are discussing on innovative approaches, especially using social safety nets to cushion the damages or impacts of COVID-19. And a digital transition is widely discussed as a solution for reducing the impacts. So we have managed to submit an inspired challenge proposal towards this goal. So I'll be talking about all these initiatives and summarize within this particular seminar. So that is the background in short. So we titled it as the new normal. So what is new normal actually? So you can see that the infections of COVID-19 pandemic, it's always going up, and especially it's going up in countries of our interest, especially in South Asia. If you look at India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, all are on the top. Infection rates are really high in these countries. Also, the other sub-Saharan African countries like Ethiopia, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Zambia, all are following this trend. So the new normal looks like the government and individual efforts to contain the spread, including the lockdowns, the commercial shutdowns, social distancing, and so on. So how these changes are impacting the food system? What are the implications? What is the trajectory? So I want to discuss about these details. So this is one of the conceptual diagrams which we presented in our paper. So let me start with the two major interventions that most of the governments practice to contain the spread of the virus. One is the social distancing and lockdowns. The second one is the public health guidelines and restriction of movements and shutdown of commercial activities. So one of the major impact of these changes or these measures was a conspicuous decline in demand for food products from consumers. Major impact is the input price volatility for food production. So the global supply chain disruptions led to import disruptions, as well as it related shortages. It created shortages of inputs, and in some countries at least it created input price volatility. And another dimension is the reduced availability of agriculture services, including extension and missionary services. How these are, I'll talk detail regarding these impacts. And the fourth is labor shortages mainly because of the movement restrictions. It's conspicuous in South Asia and countries. So the demand decline actually resulted in output price reduction, also price volatility. It also increased, the input price volatility increased the farm production cost, and the reduced availability of services and labor shortages led to delays in farming operations and farm productivity decline. So you can see that there is a triple whammy here. The output price is declining and the cost of production is increasing. At the same time, farm productivity is declining. This impact, and it results in a declining income from farm production. And it may also lead to liquidity constraints along the value chain because of the spillover. So another thing is that it's not only farm income is getting reduced. There are people in each farm household, for example, in Bangladesh, there are migrants and they are sending back money, but there is a reduction in these remittances. Also, there is a reduction in off-farm opportunity and off-farm income. So the farm income is getting reduced. At the same time, remittances and off-farm income is getting reduced. So because of all these changes and because significant income reduction, there is an impact on nutrition. So people are reducing the diversity of food intake, as well as they are taking less nutritious food. That may, if it is continuing for long term, it could lead to impacts like stunting of children or anemia of women and so on. And also it may spill over to education and health costs. That is not yet visible, but if it lasts for long, all secondary impacts will start appearing, and it may lead to a decline in human development. So this is in short about the trajectory, how COVID-19 is impacting the food system and other impacts. So let me give you some details given from the data set that you have collected through telephone surveys. So this is a data set from agri-machinery services. So the major issues they have raised is there is issues with the spare parts availability, or issues to accessing machinery mechanics, or conducting the clients. And some cases they have reported that the drivers and operators of these machines are reluctant to work because of fear of COVID infection. And also the COVID safety measures like social distancing reduces their interaction with clients. And there is a general customer decline. So if you look at the operational area of LSPs, this is a correlation diagram, and the correlation diagram shows that it is negatively correlated to the access to machinery and mechanics, and the willingness of drivers and operators to use these machines, and it's related to customer decline as well. So you can see that the agri-machinery services are affected from multiple points. It's not only one. It's due to spare parts shortage or drivers' anxiety and so on. So it's a complex problem to tackle. So if you look at the input dealers, and we wanted to look at what's happening in the input supply chain. So they have listed. We have collected data from around 20 districts from Bangladesh, and the data says that there are supply constraints or labor shortage issues, especially for loading and unloading goods, and there is problems in road access as well as transport. And they reported courier constraints of sending goods. And of course, there is, because of the border control and other movement restrictions, there is price increases of products, and some products are even unavailable. And especially the companies are not giving, in a stock basis. It's not, the stock is not given as a credit basis. So all these issues are creating, and also the reduced working hours, the number of hours that these dealerships can be open is restricted. So all these things are leading to reduction in business as well as constraints in operating funds. We also looked at the labor dynamics. I told you about the labor shortage issues, which is resulted from the movement restrictions. So if you look at this graph, you can see that the lockdown was in place at the end of March, and by April and May there is a uptick, or there's a sharp increase in labor costs. So, and it is coming back once the lockdown is over at the end of May. But it's also due to, it cannot be completely attributed to the lockdown, because that's the peak farming season in Bangladesh. But of course, there is an issue with the labor. And if you look at the scenario, what is in general, what we can see is a conspicuous reduction in income. So you can see here, this pie chart shows 72.6% of the people surveyed by FAO says that their income is lower than before lockdown. And if you look at the food basket here, consumer food basket prices, it's increasing over time until June. It's going up from March. So there is an increase in food prices. There is a decline in income. So what happens here is also because of the movement restrictions, and there is not so many restaurants or markets are open. So the access is limited for purchasing goods. So income is limited. Prices are going up. So what happened here? You can see the orange lines and blue lines here. Blue lines indicate what the percentage of demand from Dhaka's markets in different goods. For example, is the rice is 13.3%, means during the lockdown period, the demand of rice was 13% of just what was just before lockdown. That's in February. So after lockdown period is ended, that is in June, July, it has come back. The demand has come back, but not to the same level. So this is a pattern which is we are observing in every statistic we look at. Let it be employment, let it be prices. So all are bouncing back once the lockdown ends, but not to the level of the previous, the pre-lockdown level. It's not coming back to pre-lockdown levels. So here, I'm giving an example of milk. Because of these demand decline, the prices of farm gate prices is actually falling. Even though the retail prices are going up, farm gate prices are falling. You can see the case of milk here. It's really declined. And even after the lifting of lockdown, it didn't come back to the original level. It causes really high hardship to the farmers. So this is a major pattern observed during the lockdown period and post-lockdown period. The COVID-19 impact, this is a brief shot of the COVID-19 impacts. But what I did is I looked around the world. I have given an example of milk prices, but you can see the same pattern around the world. You can see it in Kenya or in India or in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Zimbabwe, or even in US. So the milk price is getting declined, and they have problems in delivering milk to customers. There is a conspicuous decline in demand. That's what all these resources are saying. So it's the pattern is really global. So I have taken an example of Ethiopian food consumption impact. So once the income declines, it leads to consumption impacts. Here I have taken it from the IFPRI study on global, the IFPRI report on COVID-19 and global food security. Here you can see that around 50 to 60% of household are saying there is somewhat or much less income they are receiving, compared to the pre-lockdown situation. And if you look at the consumption side, in Ethiopia, they say, in April, for example, 45% of what is normal. And same case with meat or fruits, all kind of perishables. And one of the major observation that we have made is the perishables is the income from perishables is hard hit in almost all countries. So what we can do about it? So that's the major point I want to raise here. So one important aspect is monitoring the food system impacts. So how can we monitor? So we have discussed among the CGIAR colleagues, also with FAO, and we have the good news is we are trying to build a comprehensive data and policy dashboard, and these are the classes of indicators that we are considering for this dashboard. First is, of course, the COVID-19 spread statistics. This should be geographically separated. And second one is food prices impacts. The food prices should be monitored regularly. But this is not a big constraint. Most of the governments or national agencies collect food price information. And second is the logistics impact. But logistics is another. We want to monitor logistics and the transport constraints, but the data is sparse, and we try to get new sources of data, like for example, mobility reports from Google or Truck Owners Association data sets. And in case of food production impact, as it is clear, we need to look at labor prices, the machinery availability, and fertilizer and chemical price and stocks, fertilizer imports, seed stock data, seed imports, pesticide and veterinary and aquaculture medicines, livestock and poultry, including feed, chicks, heifers, calves, and in case of fish, it should be fish links and fish feed. So it is a comprehensive outlook of what's going in production side. And if there is a constraint, we'll immediately know. And another dimension we want to look at is the financial stress. So we need data on microcredit, the credit dispersal compared to last year especially, and what is the farm level cash liquidity. So these are major indicators we are considering. And in case of food processing, operation of food and feed mills, and its procurement statistics. We are aiming to collect these indicators. And in case of domestic food trade impact, you can see that we are looking at wholesale traders and restaurant owners, and we are looking at the data on how these sectors are performing. And another important dimension is the nutrition impact. What is changes in food expenditure? What is the food take and dietary diversity? How it is changed? So, for example, how female food consumption is performing compared to male. We can collect such data sets, and there are already initiatives, and the only thing is we had to collate it into single dashboard. And income shocks. Income shocks is a conspicuous feature of COVID-19, and also the poverty levels shifts. So, and there is a observation that the occupation is getting shifted, and income changes due to this occupation shifts are not clear, and we need more data to confirm. And the farmers and agricultural laborers, other groups, we need to make group-wise observation to understand income shocks and poverty impacts in different sectors of the society, and how the per capita income is changing in rural and urban areas. And food losses. There's another dimension. Food losses at grower end, as well as of vegetables, milk, fish, etc. And important part is we need to look also at the social safety net, which is an important mechanism to cushion the impacts. And we have to look at the coverage, budget, and status of different safety nets programs. And lastly, it's not only domestic actions, but also international trade impacts, how the fertilizer shipments perform, whether there is enough stocks, or seed imports, or staples, how the staple imports are going, or how staple exports are performing. And we need prices and operations of ports data, as well as the food reserve data. So all these data sets will be in a single point, and we plan to provide policy guidelines after, by continuously monitoring these numbers or indicators, as well as it could be possible to include some success stories around the world in dealing with COVID impact. And we also plan a discussion board to spur discussions around these issues. And the next part is how to build resilience against COVID-19. One is expanding social safety nets for the poor people. If you look at our publication, Food Security, you will see details about these resilience building measures. So, but the key messages are, we need to expand social safety nets. Second is, we need to maintain the flow of key inputs and outputs. Third is, we need to minimize the disruption in agriculture services. And we need to ensure financial services and insurance, and maintain the flow of international trade. But if you look at the solutions, there's a common trend. For example, in case of social safety nets, there is a increasing trend of using mobile payments. Or in case of inputs, to avoid disruptions, it's better to the access to electronic markets and alternative contactless models of farm input deliveries can be useful. And in case of agricultural services and exchange services, a digital transition to these services are indeed required. And the same thing with the finance. We need to have digital finance. And so that means there is a need of digital transition. And how to do this? This is another question. So one of the innovations which we discussed in detail was about social safety net mechanisms, especially for urban and rural poor. How we can use it as an instrument to spur demand for agriculture goods, as well as a mechanism to cushion the demand decline. So what we this is an interesting thing to discuss. So we discuss about a part cash, part food for work programs. For example, in Ethiopia is very much successful in food for work program. But if you look at if it is at least part food, and if this food is locally sourced, especially perishables such as vegetables, fish, milk, etc., it can create a local demand for such commodities, and it can help farmers. So in first way, it is helping the workers and giving them income, and secondly, it's creating demand for the perishable goods. And normally for food for work programs, they are not including perishables. And if you include these perishable foods, it will also lead to nutritional security of the urban poor or rural poor. So that's a wonderful outcome. And if you think about if the food for work program, you look at the case of work, what kind of work they can do. So it could be climate smart actions, or it could be agricultural sustainability oriented interventions, or pollution management, or infrastructure development. There are different options for that. For example, in case of climate smart actions, it could be construction of cyclone shelters or tree planting for achieving carbon targets. Or in case of agricultural sustainability, it could be maintenance of irrigation canals or creating nutritional tree gardens. So any of these work can be done by manual work, but if it is within the safety net program, it can lead to multiple outcomes. It can lead to income security, nutrition security, demand creation of local food, and also climate resilience and sustainability outcomes. So what are the impediments in creating such a social safety net mechanism? So we are working with the partners for discussing these issues. Information of agriculture system, but there are multiple initiatives around the world to do the same thing. So we are looking at what we have proposed. So what we propose is creation of digital identities for farms and farmers. What we have done is we try to combine the capabilities of two different companies. That is, one company which is based on artificial intelligence. It is delineating farmlands or farm boundaries, and then providing information on plant growth, weather, and so on. So this is one way of giving information for precision farming, as well as a kind of precision farming, and it will help farmers in getting real-time data on the plant growth and other conditions. But this is only on the production side. So the digital identity of farm is not enough. We have to create identities for farmers. So the Blue Number is a company which is actually working on farmer networks, as well as creating digital identities for farmers. So we have come up with the idea to combine the farmer identity with the farm identities to make a digital to develop a digital landscape, and the CIMMYT data sets existing ones, and we'll collect more data to facilitate such a transition. So we think that such a mechanism of digitally connected farm ecosystem with the businesses will create a kind of resilient network which can withstand COVID-19 like shocks. So we need to develop. The question is how to build back better. So we are looking at such tools to develop or for fostering a transition to a digital future for farmers. But we won't say that we are the only people who are doing innovations, or it's not only scientists, but farmers do innovate. They are really engaged in different forms of innovation, because COVID-19 is really threatening their livelihood options. So here I am listing out what kind of innovative actions or responses is found in dairy sector. So you can see that there is a impact of lower prices, lower demand, and transportation disruption. So because of these three issues, there was unsold milk in dairy sector in Bangladesh. So this is a critical issue. But how a farmer responded? So farmer did production management decisions and marketing adjustments. In case of production management, they cut down. Some of the farmers cut down concentrated feeds to cows or livestock to make sure that they produce less milk, and also they fed milk to calves instead of milking it. Sometimes some farmers reduce the frequency of milking, and some farmers decide to sell their cattle and raise money for other purposes. So another the interesting adjustment they did is they sold milk to home. They changed marketing channels. They instead of selling it to some intermediary, they tried to deliver directly to homes. And also some farmers are switched to mobile vending of milk, and some farmers try to refrigerate a part of milk production, and some resorted to convert the milk into other products like sweets, butter, curd, or ghee, so that it can be sold at a later point. And few people even attempted separate cream out of a cream separator. If nothing worked, they gave away the milk to others for free of cost. So whatever it is, the farmers are attempting new ways of tackling the COVID-19 stress. So it's not documented in all the all avenues or all sectors that we are dealing with. So we need to document what kind of innovative approaches people are engaging in to buffer the impacts of the pandemic. So given all these the food system impacts and how to deal with the how to build the resilience against COVID-19, I want to give this concise message which we have given already in our article. So the takeaway message is the resilient food system to COVID-19 or similar shocks is likely to be one that a resilient food system to COVID-19 is likely one that has stable supply chains, infection-safe logistics, extended social safety nets, adequate credit facilities, and innovative labor management tools, along with appropriate farm mechanization efforts. In addition, COVID-19 safe farm operation protocols, digital extension services, circular nutrient flows, and enhanced storage facilities and innovative market mechanisms. So along with this, we need effective international trade management policies and institutions. Some of these points I didn't mention here, for example, circular nutrient flows or mechanization efforts. These you can read it in our article in detail. If you have questions, I can directly answer them now also. So thank you for your comments. Thank you, and your comments are welcome.
Okay,
thank you,
Amjad, for this interesting presentation and also highlighting some of the complexities that we are dealing with the whole COVID-19. I mean, you eloquently highlighted the impact pathway and the many variables that need to be considered there. You also looked into some of the dynamics in terms of both the lockdown and how seasonality affects some of that post-lockdown, looking at the new normal in terms of prices, demand, and other aspects. Then charted out a way of monitoring food system impacts, included several aspects such as digital transition, the social safety net, digital identity, and farmer innovation therein as aspects to consider the building back better. We had a good attendance, so 93 participants as of now, and so that shows the widespread interest of everyone trying to better understand the implications and fallout of COVID-19 and what are the implications for the new normal. So thanks for sharing your views and experience, especially around Bangladesh, but also the wider region. We do have a couple of questions that have been coming in, and some of them relate, or at least two of them relate to the dynamics of the prices. So, I mean, you have been looking at wages and cost of production and show, or at least highlight that at least this year, those costs and prices have been affected negatively, generally in the COVID-19, have rebounded somewhat post lockdown. But have you also looked across the years to really get a better understanding? Yeah, are these, how much is this seasonality or just a temporal adjustment? But if you look at the across the years, then you can control for seasonality in some of the prices and therefore better understand how much is related to the lockdown and the pandemic. Any thoughts on that in terms of especially wages and cost of production?
Yeah, I agree that the wages are not completely reflecting the COVID-19 situation. I agree with that, but because it was peak period. But we are running a survey among farmers now, and one of the question is, do you pay extra money or extra wage because of the COVID-19 crisis? Whether the workers ask for more wages. So around 30% of farmers responded that they indeed pay extra wages just for making sure that they are available. So it's there. And also, if there could be we have to differentiate between the impacts in the past season, which was because the COVID lockdowns happened exactly in the harvest season. So at that time, they received less prices. For example, in the case of maize, I know that they got 20% less prices than they expected, at least from their expectations. So there is a decline in prices, and it might have reduced the profitability of maize farming. And also in the next season, the major issues expected are whether will they reduce the area of cultivation, or will they change varieties because of seed availability, or whether they shift the input use patterns, whether how much input use they may make, or whether they have enough credit or finance available to, or whether they have enough cash to purchase inputs. So these are open questions, and we are trying to monitor these aspects and to predict what could be the impacts in next season. So the answers are coming. I cannot give a complete picture now, but of course we are working to understand this dynamic.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, related question from Gokul is also in terms of the fallout in terms of changes and delays in practices. Yeah, so do you already have insights in terms of Bangladesh, like the rice transplanting, has that been affected, and therefore kind of the cascading effects of one season being affected, how that translates into follow-up or potential follow-up implications? Understand it's early days and we're still collecting data, but any thoughts there or things?
The basic idea I can share with you is this year the monsoon was early than last year or before the years. So there is a cushioning time for farmers to start, farming operations. So I don't think it will be fully or completely, the delay may not be completely visible. Even if there is a delay because of the monsoon shifts, it may be nullified. We are not sure, but there are around 20 to 30% farmers in our another survey expressed the feeling that they don't have seeds. The availability of quality seeds they have. That's the issue they raised. So because of that, maybe they have delayed transplanting. But otherwise, there is another point I want to make is the government interventions. Because of the Boro rice, for example, was procured at a higher price by Bangladesh government. Because of that, they actually got a little bit higher price than the normal. So actually, the rice farmers in Bangladesh was benefited by COVID-19 crisis. So there are some crops, especially rice, is an exception to the rule. So those rice farmers may not have issues related to cash, but there could be other issues, like service access or input access. These could be constraints that can delay their farming decisions.
Yeah, thanks. Changing tack a bit, Clyde's Beaver was asking and wondering about food waste. Have you, I mean, it didn't really come up in the presentations, but have you seen any potential to consider food waste in some of these stylized models and data to monitor?
Yeah, food waste was a real issue, especially in case of, that is because grains can be stored. The issue was mainly with perishables, especially vegetables and milk. So there are reports of milk being dumped because it got spoiled. They could not sell milk. That is there. Also, another dimension is the false information circulated through social media. For example, in case of poultry, there was some false news that consumption of poultry or related foods can induce or you can get infection from it. So because of that, many people reduce consumption of poultry products. So there was a crisis here, and there was wasting as well as many businesses were closed because of such a false information campaign by someone. So, one issue is that how to reduce wastage and use those excess production to those who are needy. So there was I could not see a proper intervention. There is a gap, or there is a need for such interventions which can connect the demand side with with such excess supply region. So if someone can come up with some fantastic ideas, it will help in preventing such a wastage in future.
Okay, thanks. Another couple of questions relate more to the role and potential of agricultural research. So for one, did you see any or any consideration of the attitude of the government of Bangladesh in terms of the need for continued research to enhance, well, look at research and continued investments therein?
I think they will be really open to it. For example, there was a letter written by all the CGIAR centers to Bangladesh government. So it highlighted many of the interventions I suggested here in the presentation, and it was informed, the government was informed by CGIAR institutions that these are the actions you can take. And when I checked, recently I was contacted to check whether these interventions are taken. But I have seen that most of them are actually implemented. I won't say that all actions were due to our letter, but at least few of them, for example, mechanization, that was a strong point we made. Because of labor shortage, we need more mechanization. But they have allocated huge resources for giving subsidies for mechanization, for example. And also, another issue is the import dependence for fertilizer and inputs, especially chemicals. So there is a requirement of efficient farming, more efficient farming to reduce dependence. Also, a circular approach for nutrient recycling. So the government is interested also in such dimensions. So I think they'll be quite open in all these, dimensions.
Okay. I mean, most of the examples you mentioned are in terms of the government picking up on the implementation of your findings or of the potential that was identified. But any specific interest also to see how they can support this through further research in terms of Bangladesh per se? And secondly, from Natalia, also the question, yeah, okay, there's a lot being put on the table here, but what really are some of the relevant implications for a research for development institution like CIMMYT in terms of where we should be maybe thinking about focusing, both in terms of our breeding, sustainable intensification, or other activities in relation to our major cereals?
Yeah, I'll take the second question first. For example, we need to understand that there is a new normal actually, so we need our thinking procedure needs to be a bit different than before, and we have to find ways of integrating resilience thinking into our interventions also, whether the interventions we do, whether it is resilient in when such devastating events or disruptions happen, and if it is not, how can we do that? And for example, we have for example, we are collecting data before for economists. We were collecting data using surveys, but surveys are difficult now. I don't know when in future also it could be difficult. So we need to develop ways of passive data collection and switch towards big data, or that kind of initiatives. We need to look towards long term. How can we work without with even when there is disruptions? And I feel that the digital transformation and in use of more technologies has to be integrated to what we are doing. How can we use such how to use these new tools in improving the conditions of farmers? That we need to indeed explore. That's my opinion.
Okay, thanks. Then maybe a last batch of questions before wrapping up, but there's a couple of queries more linked to the digitization. So specifically, Pascal, amongst others, wondering, yeah, what role do you really see for digitization in terms of contributing to resilience? And then Sagar Kafle has a specific query on the use of mobile payments. How can you maybe use mobile payments in this is, well, resilient thinking or making systems more resilient, but particularly, yeah, how can we benefit the rural poor? And so not necessarily the urban richer, but how can you use mobile payments within this context of resilience for rural societies and poverty alleviation?
Yeah, so I think for example, the first example I'll give is of digital climate services. We in CIMMYT Bangladesh, we have created a number of climate services, including harvest warnings or pest or emergent pest warnings, as well as forecast-based advisory. So all these things which are delivered to mobile phones of farmers indeed make a difference. And also in case of in COVID-19, what happened is farmers were searching for middlemen. Actually, when we did surveys, they said that no middlemen were coming to our villages because they were afraid of infection. And we harvested our product and we could not find anybody in the market. And when we tried to sell it, they offered very low prices. So that is a dynamic here. So if there was a digital mechanism where farmers can immediately sell their product to the demand side, or the wholesaler, or any company or supermarket chains, that'd be fantastic. So they need not wait, and they may escape from the middlemen and the less prices they offered, and they may realize a higher share of consumer dollar or consumer Dhaka. So we need such interventions. In case of mobile payments, I made that reference for social safety net mechanisms. So many times the problem is you cannot hand over cash. If you have mobile payment mechanisms, you can indeed directly pay. And also, it could be a data source or data resource which we can analyze and later find some patterns in these mobile payments, and maybe even get data out of the mobile payment records. So it's all possible. I need to think more on how mobile payments can be contributing towards resilience, but these are the arguments I just it's coming to my head. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Amjad. And I mean, there's a lot of praise for you in the chat box of several people appreciating the presentation and also maybe wanting to follow up with you. And so being a colleague, although time zones can be a challenge between the different continents, but we encourage people to also follow up directly with you, being based in the Dhaka office with us and looking at some of these challenging scenarios. And so thank you so much for being available and sharing your experience or our experience in Bangladesh as part of this seminar series that CIMMYT is having on scenarios for the future of how to create value in the new normal. And so it is really worthwhile and encouraging to see how you have been able to relatively fast come up with an initial analysis of a problem that only initiated earlier this year and already managed to get a solid publication out in terms of positioning ourselves and the whole global research for development community in terms of how can we better tackle some of these implications with direct implications for our national partners and governments. And so very good also to see the initial pickup of and traction we're getting with our partners there and appreciation to take things forward. It is still a long road ahead with still quite a bit of uncertainty and so definitely enough research questions to see how we can further the new normal and see what are the implications. But congratulations and thanks so much for sharing this. And for those that are interested, as mentioned, Amjad has just put out an article in Food Security. It's open access, and the link was provided in the seminar announcement. And there's other reports forthcoming, like the FAO study that he was alluding to. So don't hesitate to reach out. And we also encourage others to think about the implications of COVID-19 for our day-to-day research and development activities in this new normal. But congrats to Amjad and the team, and thanks all for listening in and your active participation through the chat box. So with that,
thank you so
much
all.
No, thank you, Amjad, and good evening to Bangladesh and South Asia, and an early evening for Africa, and the day starting here in Mexico. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.